Here's just about all of Samsung's major releases this year, from foldable phones to laptops. So let's take a look at all of these devices, and I'll rate them based on how well they've held up and how big of an upgrade they are, and I'll put them all into this tier list. Starting with the smallest thing, the Galaxy Ring. It's a new product line from Samsung, and of course it tracks health and sleep metrics. But check this out, you can just pinch your fingers together to snooze the alarm on your phone. That's really convenient, but doesn't it kind of defeat the purpose of an alarm making you get up? There's another useful ecosystem feature where you can use it as a remote trigger for the camera. As a general health tracker, it can track heart rate, skin temperature, and it also has an accelerometer to track steps. It's pretty impressive that this is Samsung's first ring, and it can already do most of the things that competitors can while being fairly slim. And unlike the Oura Ring, you don't have to pay for a subscription. If you're into smart rings, this is pretty solid. A tier. But speaking of new product lineups, here's the new Watch Ultra. It replaced the old Watch Pro and Classic line, and now it feels very different to the regular Watch 7, with a titanium casing that's water resistant down to 100 meters. It definitely has that built for adventure feeling. It's also got a way bigger battery and a sapphire screen that goes to 3000 nits. It's very visible even in direct sunlight. But the Watch Ultra is pretty bulky and not exactly my type of watch. However, it's hard to deny the build quality and the features. And I think it's way cooler than the Watch 6 Classic, so A tier. As for the regular Watch 7, it looks pretty similar to last gen, and it also got a few more sensors, so it can track workouts better and detect sleep apnea. Though in the grand scheme of things, this is a pretty small update, so C tier. The Z Flip 6 has a more modest upgrade. Even though the Z Flip 5 could already close with no gap, the new hinge on the 6 does feel a bit nicer. The rim design and the back glass are both matte now, and overall, it does feel a bit more modern. The screen also got much brighter now, hitting 2600 nits peak, and it's also got a bigger battery at 4000 milliamp hours, so now it matches the S24 in both of these areas. But I think the biggest complaint for foldables is probably the crease, which didn't really get much better. The crease is slightly less noticeable than last gen, but there are other brands that are putting out basically zero crease phones, and I was definitely hoping for a larger improvement here. On the camera front, the main camera is now just as good as the S24's main camera. It's high resolution, but still, it can't really make up for a lack of a telephoto. The Z Flip 6's main camera can now do decent 2x zooms, but anything more, it falls apart. And besides the hardware, what makes a foldable fun is the software. Samsung does a good job with this and made it even better this year, like better cover screen widgets and these interactive wallpapers that are just so fun. So overall, I would put this in B tier for become creaseless, please. And now for those who think regular phones are way too small, there's the Z Fold 6. It got even less of an upgrade. All 5 of its cameras are the same hardware as last year, and same with the battery capacity. But the new physical build is a pretty nice improvement, being thinner and lighter. The OLED display did also get brighter to the 2600 nits peak. So overall, I do feel a noticeable improvement using this compared to last gen. It's bright enough to see everywhere, plus it feels way more like a normal phone now in terms of the weight. It's actually lighter than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. But given the price tag, the camera doesn't really match those on the S24 Ultra, and a smaller crease would be great, especially since you also feel the crease when you're writing on it. So it's a C for see my last year's review for most of the info. Before we get into the tablets and the rest of the phones, let me show you a big upgrade to my home. I just put my hand in front of this lock and it just unlocked. This is the Philips Palm Recognition Smart Lock from today's sponsor. It uses palm recognition technology and scans your unreplicable palm vein pattern to unlock. I was shocked by how fast it works. That took less than 1 second. It's so simple, you literally just show your palm so anybody can use it. And all user credentials are securely stored locally. If you have guests, you don't need to register their palm. You can share access through the Philips Home Access app. But you can also turn this into a pen lock whenever you need. And if you're about to go to bed but you can't remember if your door is locked, you can quickly ask Google Assistant or Alexa for the lock status. But more often, I think, did I lock the door after I've already left my home? This lock even has an auto lock feature where it will automatically lock the door after you leave. If you're looking to upgrade your lock, click the link in my description and use the code below for a discount. And now for Samsung's flagship tablet. What a ridiculous thing. It feels like a laptop with no keyboard, and I really do enjoy watching content on it, but it just feels like it's not that much better than last gen, with the biggest difference being the new anti-reflection coating. The coating is better than last gen's and easily beats the M4 iPad Pros. For a big tablet like this, the anti-reflection coating makes a big difference when using it outdoors, since without it, it just feels like a big mirror aiming right back at your face. But the coating on the Tab S10 Ultra is still somehow much worse than on the S24 Ultra. Why can't all the Ultra devices get the same treatment? And the other thing that's new is obviously the processor, But this year, Samsung didn't give their flagship tablets the fastest processor, since the GPU in the 9300 Plus is slower than the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 in the S24 Ultra. And not to mention, at this price point, it's facing up against the M4 iPad Pro, which is just on a different performance tier. And I feel like the two selfie cameras are kind of extra on a tablet, especially since it kind of forces a screen to have a pretty noticeable notch. But overall, the Samsung tablets are pretty good, especially with DeX. It's more useful than it otherwise would have been. But all of these benefits still exist in their cheaper tablets, so I'll put this in D tier for doesn't justify the price. Part of the reason why is that the Tab S10 Plus exists. It has a screen that's frankly just as good. It's also 120Hz OLED with the same anti-reflection coating, just slightly smaller. Now, if you do want something even smaller, that's too bad because the non-Plus line is dead. The Tab S10 doesn't exist. Anyways, the Tab S10 Plus has all the other Samsung tablet benefits of good software, a very responsive pen, plus a micro SD card slot to expand the storage. Although the Tab S10 Plus has thicker bezels, that's actually kind of useful on a tablet. Not only is there no notch, but it's also somewhere to put your fingers while holding it. And this tablet is even water resistant, so if you want, you can watch content on it in the shower too. I'll put this in A tier because the price to performance ratio is very good. Plus, with the coating, it's one of my favorite things to watch content on in brighter rooms. Before we get into the rest of the phones, we need to take a look at the software. Because this year, Samsung introduced Galaxy AI to all of its devices. But is it even good? Well, it's the definition of a mixed bag because there's a whole bag of features, but only some of them are good. I like Circle to Search and the photo editing features. Circle to Search helps me find all sorts of random things I see online. And the AI photo editing tool lets me remove things like strangers in my photos and can also expand the photo after rotating it. It's not perfect though. In more complicated or artificial environments, it tends to fall apart. And for the writing tools, I basically just use it to do spelling checks because the other ones, like Rewrite, just sounds robotic. And the summary often misses things. It just doesn't really feel intelligent enough. And there are some other AI features that feel kind of half-baked, like Portrait Studio and Sketch to Image. Against its two major competitors, Google's AI and Apple Intelligence, Galaxy AI has just as much, if not slightly more features. But it's not really about the number of features, more so the good features that I actually use, and among those ones, like photo editing, they seem to be pretty comparable in terms of the performance. Overall, I give this a B. And now onto the slap phones, starting with the Fan Edition. The S24 FE got bigger and now has a 6.7-inch screen, but that's basically it. There are no new cameras, and the screen is still a lot more reflective than the S24's. At least the bezels are thinner now. It's not a bad phone for its price, with a big battery and a 120Hz OLED screen, but it can definitely use some upgrades, so I would put this in D tier. And next, the S24, which also didn't get new cameras, but it did get some pretty noticeably different processing, which makes the photo look less over-sharpened, and I do think it looks better overall. One of the biggest problems I had with the small phone in the past was battery life, but this generation, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 seems much more efficient than before, and the battery also slightly increased in capacity, so even a small variant here lasts a pretty long time now. Besides that, it's still the solid well-rounder at its price point, with a great 120Hz OLED screen that's gotten even brighter this year. And speaking of the screen, a software update brought this vividness slider. So if you've always felt that the Samsung screen was too vibrant looking, now you can just dial it down. I do use it on a lower setting, and I think it looks much better, much more natural. I would still take the S24 over the iPhone 16 that came out later. Definitely A tier. And next, the device that I got to spend the most amount of time with, the S24 Ultra. The changes may seem small, but it really does improve the experience. Like, this isn't aluminum, it's titanium. The flatter, brighter screen is nice, but the anti-reflection coating is so unbelievably good that it transformed the experience of using this phone outside. It looks much more vibrant and clear. However, after almost a year of use, I did notice some scratches, and it looks like scratches on the coating, not the screen. Maybe whatever caused it to scratch would have scratched any other phone, but the new anti-reflection coating does seem to be more prone to scratches. Hardware-wise, the 10x camera became a 5x, which sounds like a downgrade at first, but it's actually more versatile, and you're not even compromising on performance when zooming in 10 times, because the 5x camera now has 4 times the resolution. Even after the iPhone 16 Pro Max came out, this still holds up as the best 5x camera. Despite being one of the earliest phones that was released this year, there's still nothing that matches just how nice the S24 Ultra looks outdoors. The coating might sound boring, but it's actually a great innovation, assuming there are no durability concerns. S tier. The phones all still look pretty similar to last gen. What looks drastically different though are the new earbuds. The new Buds 3 and Buds 3 Pro are no longer bean-shaped, and the Pro model here even has lights on the back. It's kind of cool, but to show the lights, the buds sit in the case backwards. so you gotta spin them around in order to put them into your ears. At least for me, the Buds 3 Pro do fit more comfortably than the bean-shaped Buds 2 Pro, and the ANC is a bit better too. The overall sound is pretty similar with clear vocals and big bass. So it's a great pair of earbuds, but I think it could be better because it's a little form over function in a few ways. Not just the lights, but also the triangle stems and touch controls just don't go that well together. When you're pinching it, you're also kind of squeezing the triangle stems out of your fingers. So great fundamentals, but a little too quirky, B tier. And now finally, the laptop. Here's the Galaxy Book 4 Edge, Samsung's latest Windows on ARM computer. It got lots of the things that Samsung does great at. The great anti-reflection coating is among the best for laptops. Even though the OLED screen can only reach 600 nits, with the anti-reflection coating, it's still very pleasant to use outside. The overall chassis is thin and light, but it's kind of an older design. My biggest complaint is a trackpad. It's pretty big, but it's still the older diving board type that doesn't click at the top. The new haptic ones, like on this Surface laptop, are just so much nicer to use. The battery life is pretty good, given that the new ARM processor is very efficient, but this particular laptop doesn't have the biggest battery in its class, at only 55.9 watt-hours. Whereas Lenovo squeezed in a 70 watt-hour battery in its 14-inch laptop. So the battery life for the Book 4 Edge is good enough, but it won't shock you with how long it lasts. Overall, this chassis is fine. But Samsung makes more impressive chassis like the new Book 5 Pro 360, especially since the S Pen is actually one of the best pens. The Book 4 Edge not being a 2-in-1 is kind of just missing out. I'll put this in C tier. So comment if there's anything you would change about this tier list and what other products I should include next time. Subscribe and thanks for watching!